Hi, I'm Lord Beelzebub, and I took a left at the Valley.
I know we shouldn't have to scream that we're atheists. You know, we don't have non-astrologers and all that. But with the religious people taking over the world, I mean, we can either speak up or be pushed into a corner.
I'm proud to be an atheist, a skeptic, a non-believer, an infidel, a heathen. I call it how I see it. I say it's ignorance and you just call it faith in unsubstantiated claims. That's something to be ashamed. I'm an atheist.
Coming at you as we near year's end, this is Left of the Valley. My name is Kevin, and I was told you shouldn't do dad jokes if you're not a father. That would be a faux pas.
Exactly.
Joining me as usual is the team with bad comedy taste. She just ended a 5-year relationship, but don't worry about it, it wasn't hers. Nancy.
Oh! I think Nancy could totally do a 50-year relationship. She could break that long commitment up. Oh, yeah. It's Nancy. She's worth it.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, 5-year relationship, that's just like hello.
Yeah, exactly.
She wonders if she's getting older or the supermarket's finally playing good music. Christina.
Yeah, pretty much.
And she'll tell you that the last part of you to die are your pupils because they dilate.
Oh.
Oh, Kevin.
Welcome back.
Oh, Kevin.
I love it. Oh my god.
Hello, ladies. How was the week?
I don't really remember, if I'm being truthful.
Sleep has not been the greatest, so I'm a little tired. It's been a very tiring week.
So today we'll be talking to Alex Muir of Dying with Dignity. And it's very apropos during the holiday season. A lot of people think of their lost loved ones and people that are on the verge of going. So.
I was going to say something totally different, but okay.
Okay. But first, let's do a chit-chat. Okay. Now, you guys hear there's something trending these days. I know there's always been tedious relationships between generation, but have you guys heard of this
okay boomer
thing
the
going on?
Best saying to ever come out of anything.
Oh my
thing that
God,
is literally
yes.
my soul words.
You know,
okay,
the saying,
boomer.
payback's a bitch.
Yeah.
I realized how far out of the current loop I am because I saw that and I thought, I have no idea what that means. I had to go.
Let a millennial explain it to you if you want.
Yes.
No, explain it again. I looked it up, but please explain it again.
For the last, I do not know how
20
long.
years?
It has been, millennials are killing this. Oh, millennials are so entitled. La-di-da. And it's so frustrating because so many baby boomers think the world is exactly the same as when they grew up.
Yeah.
They think you can go to college by working for a summer at a fast food place.
Yeah.
You can't.
I wish.
They think you can buy a house if you just save for 10 years. You can't.
Okay, I'm part of Generation X, and you know what?
Yeah,
I will
totally.
tell you right off the bat. And this is, of course, not pointing to a specific person, but the Boomers as a generation are probably the worst generation ever.
Yep.
Ever.
And
they followed the greatest generation, that won the war. They had to work hard to rebuild economies and all that, but everything they do is just geared towards me, myself, and I. And they don't give a rat's ass about anything that comes down the road. And for 20 years, like you said, they've been going, millennials are so entitled, to the point that now even the quote the term millennial encompasses Generation Z.
Yep.
And they'll talk about these 18-year-old kids and they're calling them millennials,
Yeah,
which
I'm
are not.
no,
not.
I am... Kirsten and I are at the tail end
Exactly.
of I'm not a boomer. Oh my god.
Literally the tail end of the
millennial.
millennial.
And now, of course, the millennials are starting finally to give their voice and say, you know what?
Yeah.
Okay, boomer, shut up.
And it's really interesting when you realize what okay boomer is for a millennial. Is for so long we have tried to educate the older generation on what we're actually facing. It's like, okay, yeah, we're staring down a climate crisis that will mean our very existence will be different than yours. We are staring down a housing crisis that it's like we can't, so many people are homeless because they can't afford to eat and pay rent, and they choose eating to live. And we're just at the point where it's like, well, why even bother trying to explain it more? So we're just like, okay, boomer.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
But
But don't you find it? What redeeming qualities do you find, or what things do you find you have in common? Because
Well,
do you think this is any different?
every generation has outliers.
Exactly.
Every generation has outliers.
And
like
every generation is always complaining about the previous one and the
there
following one.
are people my age who have the same mindset as a baby boomer, and I'm going to say, okay, boomer to them.
Yeah.
If they have the same, like, oh my gosh, people are so entitled, like, just get over yourself. And when you're just trying to express, like, yeah, life is freaking hard right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Then yeah, I'm going to say okay boomer to them.
I've got countless stories of speaking to Generation Z and millennials, and I remember one in particular where this guy came out of college, and basically his parents told him the old adage of, oh, when I was your age, I started with nothing. And he said to me, he says, I wish I could start with nothing.
Right.
I'm coming out of college, university with 30 grand in debt.
Exactly.
If I marry my sweetheart, she's got the same amount. I'm 60 grand in the hole, and I've got no prospect for a job. I wish I could start with nothing. And this is what I think what the boomers are missing is they think, like you said, they actually think the world is the same when they grew up.
Yeah.
And it's a problem. It really is a problem. And they really think that things like climate change, oh no, that's just a conspiracy from China and shit like that. It's like, no, well, you had your fun with the planet. You're about to check out. We got to clean up your mess.
Exactly.
Unfortunately for my Generation X, I'm afraid that we haven't been super vocal about this, and we should be more vocal about this. But I think it's very interesting to see the backlash from the boomers finally saying, I even had some arguments on social media saying, oh, well, you need to respect your elders no matter what. Well,
No.
I'm sorry.
No.
The respect is earned.
Yeah,
you don't have respect automatically because of a number of your age.
No.
Right?
Well, is it
No.
mostly that you think boomers, or is it the boomers that are conservative? Because there are boomers who have been very progressive and who have started businesses and so forth. So, to lump everybody, to lump all
we can't,
the millennials, but you
No.
feel as though there just isn't the understanding of what you're going through.
I think for the majority of people who are classified as boomers, there is not that understanding. But I definitely think there are
It's not all
empathetic
boomers.
people who are older who can have a conversation with a younger individual and understand where they are. I feel like those people are more likely to have faced adversity in their life.
I think what the saying basically says is, of course, it's not an individual, but I think what they're saying is, as a whole, the baby boomer generation has failed the future generations coming behind it. They have failed to look out for the next generation. This is the first time in the history of mankind where the next generation has a lower lifespan or life expectancy than the boomers.
That's kind of sad.
And that's really sad. And that's a failure of you as a parent in a way, right? If your children are going to have a tougher life than you have kind of failed as a parent. And I think this is exactly what the OK boomer basically refers to. It says, okay, we can't count on you guys. We're going to have to clean this mess up ourselves.
We're done with you.
And of course, it's not every baby boomer, of course.
No,
of course.
But
just like every millennial isn't identical.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But
And
as a whole.
It's really, really funny when you realize why this specific OK boomer has taken off so much. Because for the longest time, older generations were like, oh my gosh, these millennials are so delicate, and they're just so offended over everything. And when what we're getting offended over is inclusivity and equality, and don't call people racist things, don't be racist.
And these are easy numbers to crunch too.
But,
since the 1960s.
But in terms of what you're saying, it's the boomers have actually created the millennials and don't understand that.
I think the boomers have made OK boomer such a big thing, because the only reason millennials and younger generations are saying OK boomer so much right now is because we know it irks them.
Yeah.
And as soon as you find that, I found the button, you're going to keep pushing the button.
Yeah. That's the only reason people are going so crazy with OK boomer.
I think the boomers will react to that because for once they actually have pushback against it.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I think I hang out with a totally different crowd, because most of the people that I know in that generation are the ones who are fighting for social justice.
Totally.
Yes.
Who have made the atheist movement more visible to everybody, who have been more entrepreneurial.
Yes.
So it's it's a mixed bag.
And I totally
you're looking at the
understand
worst.
that there
you're
are
looking
those
at the
people.
worst in each other, and okay boomer, or
I think we need to do
millennials.
a show about this. Actually, I think we should. I think we should do an episode about that.
I think
just
so.
boomers.
But Nancy, you gotta also remember, the crowd you're hanging with. There's not a whole lot of 5,000-year-old people anymore, right?
Exactly.
So I mean, it's you guys are not the boomers. You guys are like the venerable ancient ones. That's different.
Yeah,
I'm being serious, like an actual.
because I predate the boomers.
I was about to say, like, I'm pretty sure you predate the boomers.
I do predate the boomers, but I've known a lot of boomers, who have that awareness and who have the idea that the boomers have done things to the environment that need to be reversed, like now.
Yeah.
And they've created the difficulties, and it created the difficulties in housing and education and so forth that people are fighting. So it's up to all of us, to try and get along. But I think I understand it a little better.
I think the millennials.
But I don't see that the animosity is any greater than it was when I was your age and looking at my parents. And
I
their
think the only
generation.
thing that's different is the internet.
Yeah.
Is that we can all band together and make memes.
I think, I really think that's probably it. That the ideas go so much faster at this point, and people join a movement so much. It doesn't take that long for a movement to get some traction.
Yeah.
Okay, I got to move on here. We're running against the clock.
Yeah, we can talk about
boomer.
this forever.
Oh, 5 points on that one for sure.
Oh my gosh.
All right. Did you guys hear that the outer limits of the solar system, which is called the heliosphere, is approximately 12 billion miles from Earth, right? Of course, everybody knew that. Voyager...
light years.
No, 12 billion miles.
Wait, I'm so
Miles.
confused.
Yes.
That makes no sense.
Sure it does. Voyager 2 decided to basically cross that border now, and now is into interstellar space.
Oh my gosh, I get it now. Oh my god, my brain is so slow.
And it sent a faint signal back. Voyager 2 left before Voyager 1, actually 1 month before, but it took 6 years longer for it to reach because it kind of took the scenic route.
That's fair. Scenic route's the best.
Now it's in interstellar space, and the solar wind, they realized that because the solar winds are basically dropped, and there's also an increase in plasma. So the signal takes approximately 16 hours to reach Earth. And unfortunately, the decaying plutonium power pack that they have is projected to fall below critical in the mid-2020.
Sad.
Well, they can't go on forever, right? But even after it's like dead and silent,
it'll still be moving.
The craft goes moving. It will move until forever, right?
Because there's no resistance in space.
That's exactly it.
No one will hear you scream.
Did you guys hear here in Canada? Did you guys hear this whole thing about Wexit?
Yeah, it's so stupid.
Yeah,
it's the stupidest thing ever.
We just had an election here in Canada.
It's so stupid.
The Liberals were re-elected. Basically, there's this movement called Wexit, which is supposed to be the West exiting, kind of like a Brexit.
This happens with every election in every country. It's just stupid.
The funny thing is the founders of Wexit are actually far-right conspiracy theorists.
Yeah, that's why it's stupid.
There's a guy called Peter Downing. He's an ex-cop, and he thinks Justin Trudeau is normalizing pedophilia. He pushes anti-Muslim conspiracies. And there's also another guy called Patrick King. He's a, quote, self-styled journalist. We all know what that means. And he says that Justin Trudeau is trying to depopulate the white Anglo-Saxon race.
Oh, man.
Unfortunately, for a lot of people that don't spend a lot of time doing research, Wexit now, Facebook Wexit, has over 250,000 people. Members.
Yeah, but the funny thing is, how many of those are actually living in the west of Canada?
Oh, I don't know. And, and the funny thing is, it seems to be Alberta and Saskatchewan. BC doesn't seem to be following this.
Yeah, because we're have better things to do.
Yeah, exactly. We just had Halloween, and in New York, I don't know if you guys heard the story, there was a Burger King that celebrated Halloween by dressing up as a ghostly McDonald's.
Oh my gosh, that was magical.
That was so funny.
They covered the Burger King in a big white blanket, and they spray painted McDonald's, and also there was a sign that said, "Boo! Just kidding, we still flame grill our burgers."
Oh, I love it.
Apparently, they also had their burgers in matching containers that said McDonald's.
Oh my gosh.
There is some deep rivalry going between Burger King and McDonald's, because I feel like that's not the first time I've seen Burger King do something like that to McDonald's.
I think, well, they're trying to punch up because, let's face it, McDonald's is much bigger than Burger King. And actually, the biggest competition to McDonald's, believe it or not, is not Burger King.
Wendy's?
No, it's actually Subway.
Oh,
I can
totally.
Yeah,
I
because
can totally
you got to remember
that.
that people think that McDonald's sells burgers. McDonald's doesn't sell burgers; they sell franchise. So if you go by the number of franchise per town and all that, you realize that the competition McDonald's is Subway.
Yep.
All right, perfect. Moving on, my dear Nancy, you got a top 10 for us?
I do. It might
that.
turn into a top 20, just depending on how we feel.
Okay.
This is really fun. This is, let's say, 20 amazing, obsolete words in the English dictionary that we should bring back to life.
Yes, I love words.
Oh, I
words are
love
the best.
words. I knew we all love
Especially
words.
fun words.
I don't like words.
This has been on my list for a long,
I'm bad with
long,
words.
long time. So here's some uncommon words that were very common at one time. And they're words that we could really have fun with if we could remember them. So if you're listening, replay this, get a pencil or get your computer out so that you can type it in, because these are really, really fun words. Okay, the first one, and these aren't in any particular order, they just how they turned out on the list. Crapulous.
Crapulous?
Oh, I know what you're
that
thinking.
probably
I know
shouldn't
what you're
come
thinking.
back.
It has something to do with feeling crappy, but it's not entirely wrong. It means to feel ill from excessive eating or drinking. Like feeling crapulous in the morning after your cake binge-worthy birthday celebration.
Okay,
And
that
considering we have
actually...
Christmas and New Year's coming up, we need to bring that word back.
That actually is a really good word. I feel crapulous. I feel crap.
You have to
but
say,
for
you have to say with a
reason.
smile. If
Yeah.
you're crapulous day.
That's actually amazing.
It's a beautiful word.
This one I love, grumpish.
Grumpish.
Yeah, it dates back to the 1720s.
Is it kind of grumpy?
It's an alternative to sullen or grumpy.
It sounds like a Pokemon.
Yeah,
Grumpish.
but grumpish instead of grumpy. You know, so it's a minor
I
change.
choose you, grumpish.
I'm feeling grumpish. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that is...
I like it.
Yeah.
In
I like
certain
it.
sentences, it
I
would
like
sound
all of
better.
them. I like it. Okay, number 3, groak.
Groak?
So, groak. Groak. The origin is unknown, but it means to watch someone silently as they eat.
Ew!
Yeah.
Ew!
In the
Ew!
hope.
Why?
But here's the second part of it. You're watching someone silently as they eat in hopes that you will be invited to join them.
So basically, what dogs do.
For instance, yeah, in a way, yeah. That's a good one.
I actually tested that theory out on my mother once, because whenever the dog would stare at her, she would give the dog food. So I tried it out once, and I got food. So like,
I just had a
That's right,
visual
it's like-
of you sitting on the floor with banging eyes, with your mom up by the chair.
Yeah, it's like, how am I supposed to enjoy my steak while that dog is groaking at me?
that's kind of the whole point.
Yeah. And anyway, so it's groaking. So that's a lot of fun.
I just call that hovering.
It's hard to work that one in a lot of times to normal conversation, but it's there if you need it. Pismire.
Pismire?
Pismire. It could be pismire, Pismire. It's a word that is derived from a small insect in piss, believe it or not, defined as an ant. Hey, look, there goes another pismire. It's sort of like a little tiny thingy that you don't know what else to call it. So it's like a pismire. That's a
Rather
strange
than
one.
a
Yeah.
bug.
Snow broth, which goes back to the 1590s. It refers to freshly melted snow.
I was thinking the exact same. It's probably when you
Yeah.
melt snow.
It's a perfect carpet of white on the lawn. It used to be a perfect carpet of white, but now it's snow broth.
Until you
So-
took
yeah,
the
but so
flamethrower
melted.
to it.
So it's slush.
Slush.
We call it slush.
I find that's something a kid would do when he's playing fort inside in snow, and he's kind
Yeah.
of playing house inside his fort. Is that how I made snow broth
Yeah.
for dinner?
It's quite literally what it is.
So I can't even pronounce this one, but I'm going to try. Excogigate. Excogigate.
Oh,
It probably has a
guesses?
weird pronunciation.
It's to plot, plan, or devise. It means to bring out by thinking.
Here,
So,
can I see
what
the
is the
paper? I wanna see.
excogerating about?
Which one?
Yeah, it's the top one.
Excogate?
Excogate, thank you. It's what could he be thinking? What is he thinking about?
Yeah, I
Okay.
could.
An appropriately
that's
fitting
interesting
word, I think.
It's a nice word. I think you got to really work hard to master it, though. Number 7 is apricity. You know when it's a cold winter's day, but the sun is shining.
Oh my gosh, I love those days.
That's apricity.
Those are the
And it
best
goes back to the
days.
1620s.
That is a pretty word to fit a pretty day.
Apricity, yeah.
Apricity.
Yeah. That is. It sounds clear and crisp. It's a great word.
So would you use
This one I think we still.
Apricity estate?
Yeah, this one I think people still use, but it's still on the list, and that's twaddle.
Twaddle?
Oh, yeah.
Twaddle. It's gossip. It's in stop twaddling and get back to it.
Oh, yeah, I've heard
You're
that
running
word.
that in books still.
Yeah, is that a British
It's
thing?
still around.
Twaddle? That's a British thing, right?
I think it's a British word. Sounds like it.
British or Australian, one of them.
Okay.
It's very likely how we heard it is because it's
Yeah.
a British thing.
Number 9 is elf lock. If
Elf
you have
lock?
wavy hair and you wake up with it tangled, that's elf lock. As though the elves have tied your hair in knots during the night,
Kind of like fairy twists.
like
Yeah.
elf locks. They're kind of nice. That's neat. Number
So
10.
my whole head.
Yeah. Number 10 is gorgonize. That's from the
Gorgonize?
17th century.
Something
That's
to
our
do with
whole head.
organize?
It means to have a mesmerizing effect on someone. You can use it as a sentence. I was gorgonized by his charisma.
We call that Twitter-pated now.
We do call that Twitter-pated.
No, probably not, because Twitter-pated specifically is when you're like have a crush on someone and
Oh,
they
you're
have
right.
the crush back
You're
on you.
To
So
me, it
right.
doesn't sound like mesmerizing. It's too
This
harsh.
It sounds menacing because of the Gorgons, right?
Yeah, right. This is more like I don't know. My brain stopped working for a sec there. I lost my
Reboot.
train of thought.
It's
This is a neat one. Cockalorum.
Cocklorum.
It comes from 1700s.
Well, I know why we don't use it anymore.
It refers to a little man who has a high opinion of himself.
Oh, it's so fitting.
He's a total
bring it back for
cockalorum.
that reason.
So fitting.
Yeah, I mean, it could be used for Trump, but he's not a little guy.
I'm
Well, his hands are pretty little.
Yes,
I'm so glad that when you guys said that word, none of you looked at me there. I'm really, really happy. Thank you.
You don't fit that.
Wait, the list isn't done yet.
Yeah, right.
Number 12, Snout Fair. It doesn't refer to a festival of cute pigs. It actually refers, this is really strange, to a good-looking person. And it comes from the
Who is it?
1500s. As the girl who plays Supergirl, total Snout Fair. I mean, it just doesn't
quite fit.
No. not
For
re-
me,
not in- maybe in
it
the
kind of
1500s
makes
it
me
fit more.
think of like someone who looks really nice but is an asshole.
Yeah.
So like
You think
they're-
it's snooty, right? That's why you went.
Well, no, not snooty, but like someone who like on the outside is like really gorgeous, but then you get to know them and you're like, oh my god, you're such
pretty
an
sure
asshole.
there's a German word for that, and I forget what it is because
asshole.
it's a German word, but like there's some good German words.
Smell fair for me sounded like somebody that smells good.
That's what I was thinking. Like I'm like, and that's what.
Oh yeah, I can't smell, so that's probably why I
Number
didn't think of that.
13, in the 1780s, they called a fat person a jollux.
A joke.
I don't know if it had anything to do with jolly and weight or whatever, but jollux was a slang word. Number 14 is curglaff. Curglaff. When you get into really cold water and you want to scream, that shock is curglaff.
Is it Kira, can I see it?
Curglaff, number 14. You want to finish them? Because you're better reading these than I am.
It makes me think it's more like
It's very strange. I mean,
Kurglaff. It makes me think it might be more Kurglaff
I mean,
versus Kurglaff.
It's so harsh to our lives,
Yeah.
now.
I mean, you really have to-
1500s
We just
must
call
have
that
been-
polar bear swimming.
Yeah, it must have been easier to deal with
Really?
these kinds of words.
Well, the thing
I
is,
just call that
it's-
swimming in the summer.
You're right.
Number 15 is rabble. When you heard...
Oh, we still use this word. Rabble?
Brabble.
That's people who are having a loud argument. They're brabbling over
Oh,
something
brabble.
inconsequential.
We call that rabble.
Yeah, brabble.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but now it's just like a rabble.
brabble.
Has no
That's
one
a
else
good
heard
word
this
for an
word?
argument, though.
I have.
Is that what the hamburger says? Rabble, rabble.
We
Number
just dropped
6
the B.
Yeah, number 16, Twitter light. And it doesn't mean the backlight on the phone. It's a 1600s alternative to the time of day we call twilight.
Oh my god, I like it.
Twitter like, yeah, I love it.
Twitter like.
Oh, that's really pretty.
Yeah, 17 is lunting. In the 1820s, gentlemen would enjoy a post-meal lunt, which means they could go for a walk and smoke a pipe. So they were lunting.
Why would you walk after eating? That's the perfect time to lay down and not move.
Well, a stroll. Like people,
they say a walk after eating actually facilitates digestion.
Yeah, but I just
not when you're in a turkey coma.
Down and not move.
I like this one. It's beef-witted for somebody who's stupid. He's so beef-witted.
Oh my god,
It's
I love
so
it.
perfect.
Yeah. Number 19 is monsterful, and from the 1800s, it refers to something extraordinary and wonderful. It was monsterful.
Yeah, I like that.
And the 20th, I'm going to give number 20 to you because you're going to be able to say it much better than I can. Bottom of the page.
Okay, so 1 second. Califgan?
There you go. I'll accept it. And the meaning is?
This word is something the likes of J-Lo or Beyonce own. While it is used, where is it? In the 1640s, it means to have a beautifully shaped butt. Oh my gosh.
I know. There are all kinds of lists. If anybody's interested, you can always Google obsolete.
Beyonce does have a very
words,
nice
and
butt.
there are so many. These are just 20 out of 1,000 or so. That
I couldn't help but pull my list here because I've got a list of what I call Shakespearean insults.
Oh my gosh,
I've
they're the
got
best.
3 columns, and you just pick from column A, column B, and column C. So you could be a frothy, a crook-paid mammoth.
Yeah.
All Shakespearean insults.
They're wonderful.
They're
words.
wonderful.
They are.
Because we're getting so crass now because we're so polarized.
Yeah.
So we need to bring out some of these elegant words rather than, calling each other really crass.
Yeah, let's have some class.
Let's have some class
Let's have
in our
some class in our
polarization.
insults.
Shake
I
up your
like
insults
calling
a little
people
bit.
fuck nuggets.
I like it when you call people fuck nuggets too.
That's my word.
I love
fuck
number
nuggets.
21 on that list.
Keep the list. Yeah.
Oh boy.
Fuzzle.
Fuzzle?
Fuzzle.
What does it mean?
It's what probably happened to you on your stag night. In the 1910s, friends would gather and get fuzzled to have a good time. So it means drunk or intoxicated.
Oh, nice.
Fuzzle.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good. Thank you so much, my dear Nancy. All right, my dear Kirsten.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, hi.
Hi.
You got another brilliant for us?
I got
Another
distracted
brilliant
by
moment?
Fuzzle.
Fuzzle. You get Fuzzle?
I do. Okay,
Brought to you by religion.
so back in May on the National Day of Prayer, Donald
Gross.
Trump, I know, just
I'll wait. I'll hold it in.
hold your barf bags.
I have
announced-
to catch my barf.
Yes. Announced the finalization of a rule that would allow doctors, nurses, insurance providers, and employers to refuse service if it violated their religious beliefs. So, we know that's bad. In short, he wanted to take the bigotry of the evangelical Christian bakers and apply it to the medical industry.
Of course.
Conservatives celebrated the decision because to them, Christian doctors rejecting patients was more important than patients getting the health care they needed. And Christianity Today, a publication that believes committed gay and lesbian couples are destructive to society, said the move was a major religious freedom victory, particularly for pro-life evangelicals.
Ugh.
So in theory, just to give you a rough example of what this could mean, an ambulance driver could refuse to drive a woman with an ectopic pregnancy to a hospital to obtain a necessary abortion even if her life was in danger. Pharmacists could refuse to fill birth control prescriptions or give drugs to induce a miscarriage even if a patient's doctor had approved it. So basically anyone in the medical industry just could be like, nah, don't want to do it. So this actual rule came in the form of a 440-page document. But the main reason I wanted to bring this up is today, U.S. District Judge Paul Engelmayer struck down the rules as unconstitutional,
Yes.
nullifying all 440 pages in their entirety.
Oh, thank goodness.
Finally.
Oh, finally.
That was why I wanted to bring that up, because, like, Fuck you guys.
Well, I guess hopefully his decision won't be overturned by another judge somewhere else.
Let's hope not. That's all I've got for
Legal
this week.
systems.
But that's some good news.
Yeah, that is some good news indeed. It's kind of funny because it's very apropos of what we'll be talking a bit later with our guest Alex Muir. About religious precepts and principles getting into the medical side of and science. So it's going to be very, very apropos. So fantastic, good news. Mm-hmm. All right, anything else?
No, as I said, I was really tired this week.
No, that's a good one. That's a significant ruling. Thank goodness there are still judges left who rule.
This is also the reason.
The way the law actually reads rather than the way you want to pervert it.
And I hate to say it, but this is also the reason why politics are so important in the United States is because of that. Because they elect their judges and they elect, and whoever party goes in there brings their own judges. Mm-hmm. And we've seen since the arrival of Donald Trump how they've been stacking the Supreme Court with conservative judges.
And not even just the Supreme Court. Look at all the judiciaries and the lower level courts. Oh my gosh, it's horrifying.
So if you're an American citizen out there, or even a Canadian citizen, it doesn't matter which citizen of the world you are, and you think, my vote doesn't matter, it doesn't count, or whatever. No, it does. It absolutely does.
Can you imagine?
That's the Republican agenda. That's why they're putting up with Trump and a lot of this other nonsense, is to get as many people, as many conservative judges in the courts as they can, regardless of whether they're competent or not. It's get them on there so they can rule in favor of whatever the evangelicals want, and they don't even have to think. They just have to know what the evangelical agenda is and rubber stamp it and go from there.
How long do you think it's going to take for all these Republican politicians? No, not impeachment. How long it's going to take for these Republican politicians to stop kowtowing to Donald Trump, to realize, because there is a breaking point. There's a breaking point where they'll say, it's either I support Trump or my career is done. And I think that breaking point is getting close. I think it's getting really close to a point where they say, I just can't support this anymore.
There are some Republicans in specific states, I don't know which ones they are, but because Trump is still being supported by 90% of evangelicals.
Oh yeah, of course.
So I feel like anybody in those kind of states isn't going to switch until their voter does, because they don't care about morals. They care about winning. Mm-hmm. They don't care about actually helping their country be better. They care about being in power.
It's true. That is the religion. It's not Jesus. It's the religion is being in power.
Yeah.
There used to be a time when people in the U.S., including the politicians and those who were in the Senate and were in positions of leadership, would look at countries like Germany, and they would look at countries like the banana republics, and they'd say, how could people kowtow to an autocratic, cruel leader like that? How is it possible for people to actually think that way? And now we're experiencing that. And it's something that I absolutely never thought would come to pass, that people would protect someone so evil. And fall in line because the leader of the Senate says we have to do this because that's our job as Republicans. Yeah. It's horrifying.
It just gives you an idea. If you want to do a trip back in time, let's compare Donald Trump and Nazi Germany there. All you have to do is change the phrase that, oh my God, I can't believe they lock up these poor immigrant children in cages, and change immigrant children to Jews.
Yeah.
And you know exactly what was said back in the 1930s in Germany. And I can't believe they lock up these Jews in cages, and somebody said, well, they came here illegally, they shouldn't be here, blah, blah, blah.
Or that's exactly it's better for them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's just so frustrating when you realize, that anybody who's supporting Trump now would have supported Hitler in the 1940s. And it's just you guys suck.
And it's very apropos because this weekend is also Memorial Day.
Yeah.
Right? And the big lesson was always,
lest we forget.
Lest we forget.
I'm pretty sure a lot of people forgot.
Seems we've forgotten.
Yes.
It really seems that we've forgotten.
Clearly.
And I really think that we need to take a very strong look at the lessons of the past so we don't repeat them. And of course, hear from our point of view as being atheists as well is, I think we really need to start focusing. Maybe we'll talk about it next episode. Start focusing as well as trying to get the religion out of the ceremonies and all the remembrance, because it's the same religion that pushed all these crimes back then. Catholicism and Christianity didn't just stay neutral in that fight back in World War II. They picked a side. They picked the wrong side.
They did.
They picked the wrong side.
We're looking at you, Catholic Church.
and you see the same thing today. Today's the evangelicals with Donald Trump, right? They if you go throughout history, religion has always picked the side of the oppressor, the one that was in power.
The one that will keep them in power.
Yeah, of course, there's a lot of stories of, some priest, saving children here and there. Of course. But if
those
you
are outliers.
If you look as a whole, religion always had a dark, shadowy role in these things. And it's really high time for us to really cast that aside. Mm-hmm. Anyway, by the way, if you haven't watched this, there's this wonderful documentary series on Netflix called The Family. I've been hearing about this over the internet. I watched the first episode last night. It's how Christianity and the evangelicals get into power in Washington.
Really?
Yeah, and it's essentially almost a cult. And I've just seen the first episode. It's bloody scary as hell. I highly recommend you guys watch that. It really is. So anyway, going on that, let's take a quick pause, and when we come back, we'll be talking to Alex Muir about dying with dignity. So stay with us.
In a world torn apart by a lack of reason,
or least,
and I think it should be religion treated with ridicule and hatred and contempt, and I claim that right.
In the morning.
Hi, everybody. This is Robert Stanley from the Right to Reason podcast, and if you subscribe now, you'll get free.
Learn more about the broadcast at therighttoreason.com.
Hi, I'm God, and I just want to make sure to tell you not to listen to Unapologetics on Stitcher and SoundCloud. That's Unapologetics with an X at the end. But, definitely do not listen to the show. I mean, I swear to me, alright, I will murder my son. I kind of already did that, but don't listen to the show, okay? Hey, Lucy.
Can you not call me that, okay? We already went over what my name is, okay? It's Lucifer.
Alright, look, Luce. You want to come with me? I'm going to go fuck with this guy, Joe.
No, don't do that, okay? Can you just leave him alone?
Yeah, I'm gonna kill his family.
No, don't do that.
I'm gonna give him sores all over his body.
Don't do that. That's disgusting.
I'm gonna kill all of his livestock.
Stop saying things. Just stop.
I'm gonna blame the whole thing on you. Alright, let's go, bud. Remember, don't listen to Unapologetics on Stitcher and SoundCloud.
Hey, definitely listen to that show. It's awesome. It's really cool. He's really a dick.
I heard that.
The problem is that whenever somebody seriously represents his belief that Elvis is still alive in a conversation, on a first date, at a lecture, at a job interview, he immediately pays a price. He pays a price in ill-concealed laughter.
Right. Now, surely you can agree with
that is a good thing. Then he could rattle on about this is not a scientific claim. This is a matter of faith. When I look at you, I see you might be Elvis. I mean, he could do this.
Joining us online is Alex. He's the co-chair of the Dying with Dignity Vancouver chapter. He's a snappy dresser and sassy dancer. Alex, thank you so much for joining us on Left of the Valley.
Thank you for inviting me.
I only take 5 takes, right? Alex, this is a time of year where people really start thinking nostalgia, and the holiday seasons is around the corner, and people start thinking about their lost loved ones. And there's also a question of what happens when we face our own mortality and the end of life. And I think this is a very important conversation to have. So maybe you'd be so kind to explain to us and our audience, what is Dying with Dignity?
Dying with Dignity is an organization that's been around for almost 25 years now. And initially, what the organization was focused on was fighting for the right for medical assistance in dying. So that was kind of the focus of the organization for many, many years. And then once the legislation came into place in 2016, we actually thought that our role would diminish and we wouldn't have to be around any longer. But what we discovered is that there are, because of the limitations in the legislation and access issues for people, and also there being other end-of-life issues out there, that we're still a fairly active organization. Our priorities obviously have changed, but we find the need to focus on several different issues. Mm-hmm. And just so you're aware, the organization has what they call the 4 pillars, and so these are one is about eligibility, and this is ensuring that the made legislation complies with the Constitution and the Charter of Rights, and so that's when we get into all these. We look at the limitations in the legislation and then advocate for change. Mm-hmm. We try to make sure that Canadians have access to medical assistance in dying, and so we have, for example, an independent witness program where we go in and help people with. We witness them when they're applying for medical assistance in dying. Mm-hmm. We provide support services for people who are going through this. This is for individuals and families. And we also do some education. We have presentations on advanced care planning and patient rights and that sort of thing. So those are kind of the 4 areas that the organization is focused on.
Fantastic. And of course, if we're talking about death, nobody knows more about death than our own Nancy here. And Nancy, you also volunteer for these people.
I do. It's important. Alex, do you mind if I explain just a little bit about the witness program?
Yeah, please do.
Oh, good. Well, shortly after the law where the MAID procedure became legal.
This is in 2016, right?
In 2016.
So it became illegal across the country to have assisted
correct.
In dying. Okay.
Correct. And when someone wants to have access to the procedure, they have to sign a form that has some specific questions on it to determine whether or not that person is eligible or not. And there are about 8 questions that determine whether or not a person's death is in the foreseeable future, if they're over 18, whether or not they understand that the form allows the practitioner to come in and perform the procedure, and that they know that they're going to die as a result of the procedure. It's a legal form.
This is the form you're giving me, right?
It's a legal form. And what was happening was that there were many people who wanted to have the procedure, but for one reason or another, they could not find family or friends that were supportive of their decision, or they didn't want to tell other people that they were going to have the procedure. They wanted to keep it private. And so Sue Hewson was one of the first people in Vancouver to volunteer, and with her efforts, she had other people join her, and the witness program was born. And what happens is that a person makes a request to have the procedure. They get the forms and the information from their health authority. In our area, it's Fraser Health Authority. And then 2 independent witnesses who do not know the patient, who are not involved in that person's care, who don't have any benefit from any of the will. They're not a beneficiary. They're absolutely independent. They're the ones that witness the patient filling out the questionnaire, and then the witness then sends it off to Fraser Health. But the request is just that. It's a request, and it doesn't tie the person to the procedure. They can change their mind anytime. But what it has done is it has given people the ability to have a witness that they can trust in one of the most intimate decisions that they will ever make. And they know that witness is not going to tell anybody else that their wishes are going to remain confidential. Anything else that you need to add? I kind of went over it pretty quickly.
This is the form you've given me here.
That's the form. Anything else that you need to add to my quick overview, Alex?
No, that was good, Nancy. I just want to clarify when you mentioned family members. You did cover it later, saying that anyone who's in the will cannot be a witness, and that's why, generally speaking, family members can't sign, because most if you've got family in your will, they obviously can't be witnesses for you. And so what happens is you get, especially some older people who a lot of their friends have died already, and they don't have a big circle of people that they can call on.
Oh yeah.
So that's when we get called in.
Now, it's interesting that Nancy gave us, each one of us here, one of the form, the patient request record. I just want to ask, you guys, Kirsten, Christine, you guys have the same page I have. Is it normal, because on my page it says Kevin, and there's a big red stamp that says "Do not resuscitate"? Is that normal? Oh. No, I'm just kidding.
Do not resuscitate. It's a whole other discussion.
But this is something that you guys have been fighting for before the law passed in 2016 in Canada, and it's something that it's a bit like you alluded to a bit earlier. It's something you guys are still fighting for, because there's obvious pushback here, especially coming from the religious right.
Yeah, that's part of the issue. Yes, but there are some limitations in the legislation as well, which we think need to be addressed.
So what are these limitations we're talking about right now? And is this a Canada-wide thing, or is it from province to province?
The legislation is federal. It's Bill C-14. But the administration of it, because it falls under healthcare, it's administered by the province. And then in BC, what the province does is then they basically ask the health authorities to administer, and that's why there are made teams within each health authority.
Okay.
But the legislation applies nationally. Quebec has its own bill, Bill 52, but Bill C-14 would apply everywhere else.
And you said, you alluded a bit earlier that across Canada, this is a movement that's growing, but it seems to be growing even more here in the West.
Yes, that's right. It's used more in BC than elsewhere.
Okay.
And I think a lot of that has to do with I think BC has actually done a pretty good job with educating people about MAID and getting the word out there what it's all about. I'm still surprised sometimes when I run across people who say to me, "Oh, is it legal?" Because they're not aware. But and I think that's the challenge in some other provinces, is that it really is not talked about very much or not advertised very much.
No, it's not. And I think a lot of Canadians have a tendency to watch a lot of American media television. And I think in the States, the movement is not as far ahead as it is up here. So are you aware of some of the differences between the Canadians and the Americans as far as the Dying with Dignity is concerned?
Yes, and the numbers are lower there, even though like Oregon's had it the longest, and their numbers are much smaller than ours. And there are a couple of significant differences. In the U.S., it's done by oral medication. So what happens is the person has to take the drugs themselves. So they go to the doctor will give them a prescription, then they go get the prescription filled, and then it's up to them to take the drugs. In Canada, there is a doctor or a nurse practitioner there. So almost all of them are done by an injection in Canada, rather than oral medication. And the challenge in the U.S. with the way they have it is that the drugs are in very short supply. So there's a long waiting list. So when someone applies for it, they often have to wait to get the drug, which is problematic, as you can imagine. And also they have to pay for it. In Canada, it's all covered by our medical system, and the drugs are very expensive, and so it actually excludes a lot of people in the U.S. because they can't afford the drugs.
Wow!
So they've got some pretty significant challenges, and plus there's as you were alluded to, the religious lobby is quite strong in parts of the States. A lot of the hospitals are operated by religious groups, and they can exempt themselves from offering the service.
Yeah, that's one of the problems that we have right here in the country as well. There's a lot of Catholic hospitals, especially, that have been there since, my God, since almost the province was founded, or the country was founded, right? And then they have the right to say no.
Right. So Providence Health, for example, what they do though is they allow, like, we go in and we witness. So I'll use St. Paul's Hospital as an example. We do go in and we witness requests there, and then they do allow doctors to come in, because two independent medical assessments are required to ensure that the person meets the criteria. So the request goes in, then two doctors come in independently, do the assessment. And Providence does allow that to happen at their facilities, but what they don't allow is for the procedure to take place at their facilities. So, and this results in what we refer to as forced transfers, where you forcibly transfer the patient elsewhere. And this is also the issue we have right now at Delta. You mentioned earlier Delta Hospice. That's an issue there as well. So that's one of the and that's another area that we get involved in, trying to get that changed.
How easy, but when I talk to the public, you talk to Joe Blow in the public there, and they're always kind of misinformed about, how easy or how hard is it for somebody to end their life in that sense, right? I mean, they'll say, for example, what if you're feeling really depressed one day and, you just want to end it, but then you change your mind, or, I don't know about you guys, but whenever I'm in a hospital and I eat hospital food, I just want to die right there myself as well. So, how easy is it to get the process going, and how easy to get out of it in case you change your mind?
You can change your mind at any time. So, as Nancy was saying, like, just because the person fills out the request, that does not obligate them, right? And so, what some people, the way they describe it to me is, they feel it's like an insurance policy. If they qualify, what they do is they go through the process, and if they qualify, and they know that they've got that option available to them, and they say it's a weight off their shoulders, is what they say, and a relief that they know that once they've been approved, that option is open to them. But back to your question, though, about whether anyone can do it, I'd say no, because one of the conditions is you have to have a grievous and irremediable medical condition, and so these doctors that come in to do your assessment have to. That's why they're there. They're there to determine whether your medical condition meets the criteria.
So what is a grievous medical? I mean, we can understand if it's like terminal 4 cancer. We can understand that, but in the grayer zone, especially when it comes to mental health, what is defined as an example of grievous?
That's right. Mental health that's the challenging one. That's one of the limitations in the legislation, actually. Like right now, the way the legislation is written, if you have a dementia, for example, or Alzheimer's, you likely will not, with no other medical conditions, you likely will not qualify. Now, having said that, there was a very recent case. I don't know if you heard about it in Victoria, where his name is Gail Garlock. His wife just went public. I think he died in August of this year, and his wife went public because he had Alzheimer's, or it was sorry, I'm looking for that. I have the details here somewhere. It was a form of dementia, and what happened with him is his doctor. It's called Lewy body dementia is what he had, and his doctor monitored him over a long period of time, and he had requested medical assistance in dying, and it became obvious to her that his condition was irremediable and in decline, and he was suffering, but he was lucid. He was lucid enough right up until the end, and so he was able to access MAID. And the condition that most people with dementia have, of course, is that they're not lucid, and that's one of the requirements. You have to be mentally competent when you request MAID, and also right up until the time that the procedure is delivered. Right on that day, you have to be lucid. So this is the challenge for people with mental illnesses is making that determination. So it's a very challenging part of the legislation, and that's one of the areas that we want to address through what we call advanced requests, where someone could say in advance if they get to a certain point, they want to go ahead with MAID. So there's ongoing discussion on this whole topic.
So essentially, sorry, Nancy, if I can jump in, let's say for example you take me. I'm still I'm midlife. I'm in great shape physically, but I realize 15 years down the road that my brain is going to mush. I'm still in great shape, and I basically say, okay, once I can't recognize anybody and I'm no longer there, I'm no longer Kevin. Just pull the plug. You guys can do that, or do I actually?
No, you can. No, you cannot do that.
No, what's happening is that if you have, let's to have an example, you have someone who has advanced cancer of one kind or another, and it's irreversible. There's no question that you're going to die, and you're going to die as a result of the cancer. At the same time, you find that your parents may have had Alzheimer's. You understand that you're also a candidate, and your Alzheimer's might begin to occur faster than the cancer, so that you feel as though your Alzheimer's is going to interfere with your being able to have capacity or be lucid at the time of the procedure.
I see.
And what is happening, which is so sad, is that people with advanced cancer who feel as though they're going to lose capacity will ask for the procedure sooner rather than later, while they still are able to agree at the last minute that yes, they want the procedure. So people are actually losing, let's say, 2 or 3 years of life because they fear that if they put it off, that when the time comes, that they're not going to be able to respond appropriately. So you do have people who have been quite famous, in their advocacy in ending their life and talking about it on video, in hopes that the law, will finally be amended so that you can have an advanced request. It's the foreseeable future part of the form is what is at this point up in the air as well.
Well, sorry, just expanding on that, Nancy. The case that you're talking about, the recent one is Audrey Parker from Halifax. So So last year, she's the woman. She had stage 4 breast cancer, which had metastasized, and she had a brain tumor from that. And she opted for MAID, even though she'd hoped to last through Christmas. She said, "I can't take that chance," and so she ended her life on November the 1st last year. Wow. But she was very articulate, and she kind of raised awareness about this issue, and so. There is an amendment that's been drafted. It's called Audrey's Amendment, and this is one of the things that our organization is pushing for is getting the federal government to change the legislation so that people who have been assessed and approved in cases like Audrey's should be allowed should be allowed to make an advance request.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, if you make your will and you make your financial settlements prior to Alzheimer's setting in, and your will is approved and it's executed, it should be the same in terms of the MAID. To me, there's an absolute parallel. If one is approved, and then you have Alzheimer's, the will still goes. Nobody can you can contest it, but it's still legal. Mm-hmm. And so when you make a request and Alzheimer's or brain tumor and the results of that brain tumor, there's no reason why your request when you had capacity and were lucid shouldn't be honored in the same way. And the Alzheimer's Society is now advocating for that as well. They're not standing in the way.
That's a very recent change. Yeah. That was just this year they changed. Which is good to see. Nancy, you were starting to talk then about this reasonably foreseable.
Yeah.
Which I think is it's kind of a separate issue, but one that we also feel quite strongly about. And if I can just talk about the Quebec cases recently.
By all means.
So there were 2 cases in Quebec. One was with Nicole Gladue, the other was Jean Truchon. And so these were 2 individuals who had they're still alive, have debilitating diseases, and they were challenging the reasonably foreseeable criterion in the MAID legislation. And let me just back up with some history here. That stipulation that your death has to be reasonably foreseeable was put into Bill C-14, but it was not in the court. The court case that led up to Bill C-14 was the Kay Carter case in BC, and she's the one that challenged challenged what was going on in Canada at the time. And as a result of that court case, the court laid out what they call the Carter criteria, and that's basically what you see in the legislation now. But the reasonably foreseeable was not in the Carter criteria. It's when it went to Parliament, the politicians got talking, and the only way they could get it through, because there were people worried about patients being taken advantage of, and so they put this requirement in the legislation that your death had to be reasonably foreseeable, and that has been challenged in several court cases. The 2 in Quebec, there was also one in BC. So what happened just a couple of months ago, it might be 3 months ago now, the court ruling came down, and the judge said that the statutory provision requiring natural death infringes life, liberty, and security of the person guaranteed by Section 7 of the Charter of Rights. So the judge basically struck it down, and they said that is an unrealistic. It violates the person's rights. And the judge, furthermore, she gave Canada and Quebec 6 months to remedy the legislation to fix this. So this came out during the federal election campaign, and so it became an issue. And so the Greens, the NDP, and the Liberals all said they will not challenge the court ruling, which is a good thing, because that means once it's not challenged, that means it'll be precedent setting. And this reasonably foreseeable thing will get struck down. However, the Conservatives said they were going to rewrite the legislation anyway.
No, say it ain't so. The Conservatives had to challenge that? No.
Yeah.
Well, what the foreseeable future clause was doing was that you have people with ALS and other degenerative neurological diseases who were maybe in their 30s or 40s, and they were suffering, but they can't access the program because their death is not in the foreseeable future. So that has to change.
Yes, and that was the Julia Lamb case in BC, and she was 25 years old. And what happened this year is the courts said you meet the criteria. So they actually ended up the BC Civil Liberties Association, which had brought the case forward. They basically withdrew their case because the courts agreed that she met the criteria. So this is a good sign, and I think what was also happening because of this reasonably foreseeable, it was scaring off a lot of doctors who were doing assessments because they said, like, how do you define reasonably foreseeable?
That was my next question. Right? How do you define that? Right.
Right. So it's very gray, and it scared a lot of doctors, and so it'll be great if it gets thrown out, and it's looking pretty good right now that will happen.
Wow. Well, that's pretty amazing. Yes. So there's no. So if you knew, for example, that there seemed to be a time limit for foreseeable future, but if you knew that a person can go 25 years, it's still foreseeable future, but right now it wouldn't apply to a situation like this, right? You need the guy. I don't know. Let's say I had a disease, and they say, "Well, Kevin's got hamster brain, and he's not going to make it. He can make it a maximum of 25 years." It's foreseeable future, but it's not. It wouldn't fall into the same criteria. I wouldn't be allowed at this point, as the law is written, to actually go for assisted dying, right?
Well, it depends. I mean, you have to meet all the other criteria as well, right? Like your disease has to be grievous and irremediable, right? So.
Well, trust me, there's no cure for hamster brain. Trust me.
Are you suffering? So you have to meet all the criteria, right? So you got to be suffering, you have to be in pain, all those other things, right?
What if the people around me are suffering? Because I'm looking at Christina and Kirsten right now, and they're basically shaking their heads again. I can't believe we're actually part of the show. Alex, you're painting a very positive picture there, but for the average person out there, what can they do to kind of help this go along? I mean, it seems to me that this seems to make so much sense, and I hear people talking all the time, like, Jesus Christ, I can put my dog to death in no time, and don't have to go through all these hoops, and why can't we do that for people? So what can the average person do to actually help with this?
The first thing I would say is write a letter to your MP, because the Bill C-14 is up for review this year. It's mandated, so it will be reviewed this year. So now is the time to talk to your MPs about what your concerns are, and what we would like to see is we want to see the reasonably foreseeable clause taken out. We want Audrey's amendment adopted so that people who have been assessed and approved can access MAID, and also lift the unfair ban on advance requests, which means because that's what affects people who have dementia and other conditions like it. So those are kind of the three changes that we'd like to see in the legislation. And the only way to make that happen is to get the politicians to focus on that.
Yeah, it seems to me that Canada being a mostly secular country, and I think if you were to do a poll of the population, I think the population would be really in favor of what dying with dignity is doing. So what is it that's stopping the politicians from agreeing to this? It seems like 2016 has come along, but it seems very slow. This is something we should have gone way past by now. So when you guys are going to Ottawa and these places, what is it that you're hearing from politicians? Why the slow turn of the wheel here?
Well, I mean, there is a lot of caution out there, especially among some of the religious groups don't agree with this, right? They don't agree with MAID, period. Yeah. And so, so here we are. Here we have a legal right now to medical assistance in dying, but we believe that it's too limiting, and yet there are some people that think that we should actually the Conservatives were going to rewrite the legislation, and which way we know that they weren't going to make access easier, right?
Yeah.
So and there are a lot of conservatives out there, right? So I mean, there's a lot. There is some division, but having said that, I've got to say support for MAID is quite strong across Canada. The numbers have grown. Back in the 90s, this is in the Stu Rodriguez days. It was about 60% in favor of MAID, and then by 2011. It had jumped to 67%. In 2015, it was 78%. And now, from the surveys that they've done over the last year, depending on which survey you look at, it's between 80 and 85%.
Yeah.
And how many people have actually accessed the service since it was legal, Alex?
There have been about 7,000 across Canada.
There we go. Yeah.
Yeah. And in BC this year, there have been 900, up to the end of September this year, 926. So so it's so BC is kind of at the forefront.
Yeah, that's almost your kill count too, Nancy.
we don't reveal those things in public. And so how many have been witnessed by our group? Since the beginning, or when did you start? Did you start keeping a tally on how many we've actually been witnessing here in the Lower Mainland?
Yeah. Yes. So last year in the Lower Mainland, we witnessed 138, and so far this year we are at about 170 something.
Yeah.
About 180 now. Yeah.
Wow. Pretty amazing. Alex, another question for our neighbors. A lot of our audience is in the United States. If an American wanted to, for lack of a better term, die with dignity, could he or she come up here and get the procedure done if their state doesn't allow it?
No. You have to be. You've got to be eligible for health services funded by the federal or provincial government. Mm-hmm. So someone who's from the States, obviously, because they don't have residency here, they wouldn't have that.
So another reason for our American friends to become Canadians. Numbers say we have a longer lifespan than the Americans anyway, so you can live longer and then die with dignity up here as well.
Yeah, they're only in the U.S. I think there are 9 states now that where MAID is allowed.
Oh, well, that's okay. I thought it was less than that, so that's progress.
Mm-hmm.
It's about 9 states. It covers about 25% of the population.
Okay, excellent. Alex, thank you so much for helping us with all this today. We really, really appreciate this. If you'd be so kind, maybe send me some of the links that people can use. I'll put them in the notes of the show, and people can access them and hopefully learn more about dying with dignity. Perfect.
That's great.
Is there another question we need to ask Alex before we let him go? Perfect. Alex.
No, is there anything left unsaid that you want to go out there before we say goodbye?
No, I think we've covered all the key points. I do want to say though that in terms of if people want information about medical assistance in dying, the health authority websites are pretty good. And if you just Google medical assistance in dying BC, it will take you to there's a government website which has all the forms and describes the procedure, but then each of the health authorities also have got some they have their MAID teams who are very knowledgeable and help people through the whole process.
And let's face it, when you read a government website, you probably want to die right there anyway. I mean, this stuff will kill you. Alex, thank you so much. Before I let you go, I gotta have you say, hi, this is Alex of Dying with Dignity, and I took a left in the valley.
Okay. Do you want me to say that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, hi, this is Alex Muir. And what do you... Sorry, I missed what I was supposed to say.
I took a left in the valley.
I took a left in the valley.
Fantastic. And that was Alex of Dying with Dignity. This is a very, very important topic that people don't talk a lot about.
It is, and I'm so glad we had Alex on because he's such an expert in so many ways, and he is an active witness as well.
Yeah.
So he brings a lot of compassion and knowledge, to our group, and He's just an outstanding guy, and I'm glad we did talk about it because it's something that people need to talk about more often.
Yes.
People are reluctant to do wills, they're reluctant to do advanced planning, and when the time comes, it's as though no one has ever died before except them or in their family. So the more we talk about it, the more people are going to be able to have a more, hopefully a more compassionate and tranquil death.
And as an atheist show, we talk a lot about the flaws of religion, but we don't talk a whole lot about the flaws of atheism itself. And that is one of the flaws of atheism.
Yeah.
We don't talk a lot about death, and we really don't have much to offer when it comes to death. So this is really, really important. We can... religion can always bring the comfort story of the heaven and all that stuff, and they have a sense of community. And I think, when you're approaching your twilight years, a lot of people get more scared about that. Like the comedian George Carlin used to say, they start popping open their Bible because they're cramming for their finals. Right? They're studying for their finals.
George Carlin.
It's something that we need to do more as a movement, is to deal with the finality of our own life, of our own mortality, except for Nancy, of course. But the rest of us mortals have to deal with this, and to just hide and not talk about it is not a good approach.
The hardest part is broaching the conversation itself. Mm-hmm. Once you get beyond that, and people do start to communicate, it's amazing how much information that you never knew about the other person comes out. And then, at least if you're the person who is in charge of someone who has a disease or an illness that's terminal, you know what their wishes are. And so when the time comes, you can make their wishes what they want in a compassionate way, rather than trying to guess or not even talking with them about MAID, because you think it may be something that they're going to be resistant to.
Exactly. You hear a lot of atheists will talk about, once I'm dead, and the lights out and I don't care. I don't care what you do in my body. Yeah, but we're not talking about this here. We're talking about just before. It's just before, because we always assume we're just going to kill over and that'll be it. But what if you're in a state where you're really suffering and you're really incapacitated and you're really, really having a hard time? We don't talk a whole lot about that.
Well, even before that, Kevin, people need to think about an advanced planning so that they have documented exactly, the parameters of, this is what I want when the end is near. This is the type of care that I want. This is what I don't want. And so when you discuss it and people know that, then as you approach the time when you are in pain, people know what to do, and you can be at peace knowing that your wishes will be carried out.
Exactly.
It's a very profound process, but necessary.
Yeah, so hopefully the movement will get bigger and bigger up here in Canada, and hopefully in the United States they'll grow bigger as well. And we're surprised by the 9 states. Well, it's a good start, It's a good start. So hopefully this will get better and better as well. Thank you so much, guys, and thank you for Alex for joining us today on the show, and thank you for listening. You can find us at leftoutofvalley.com. You can find us on Facebook, on Twitter, at LETV Podcast. You can send us an email at leftatvalley@outlook.com. Send your complaints or your death requests to Nancy on the 3rd floor, but beware of the incoming knife. Give us a 5-star review wherever you find us. It helps us and helps others find the show. What else can I say? You can become a patron like our friend Freethinker215 and get some great behind-the-scenes look. Just go to Patreon/LETV. Okay, coming up. We were supposed to do something with David Fitzgerald, and we will. David had a bit of a schedule snafu, so we have to push him back a little bit, so we will have David Fitzgerald.
That's okay, I can read more and get more questions.
That's right. We'll have Jeff Cohen from FAIR talk about bias and unbiased media. We'll have the Brazen Atheist, and she was a stripper. That'll be interesting. And then, of course, we'll be in December. We'll have our end-of-the-year show, Christmas special, everything going on. We'll have our old friend Dr. Del Rey will come back.
Yay!
And he's got a guest as well. He'll be actually in the region soon enough, so that'll be interesting. And in the new year, we'll have the incredible Tracy Harris from the Atheist Experience and the Godless Bitches. She'll be starting off the year with us. Yes, that'll be fantastic stuff. All right. Anything else we need to add?
Communicate with people.
Yes.
Just Talk to people. It's important.
Talk to your elders about it. Talk to your kids about it. It's an important subject.
Not just that, just communicate in general.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're talking about dying with dignity or listening to the show?
I was talking about just talking to people about...
I was trying to get them to listen to the show.
Okay, fine. Talk
listen
about
to the show
too.
and communicate with us.
Yes.
There we go.
There.
And once you listen to the show, you can go die with dignity. Thank you so much, guys. Until next time.
It's a disease, it comes from culture. Only true on a regional scale. Science is universal. For you to say that Horus isn't real, but Jesus is, or Zeus, Thor, Mithra, Vishnu, you don't believe in them. I think the reason is apparent. You do what you're told and believe.
Oh my God! Try that again. And
we try to sober him up before each show, but sometimes some weeks are better than others.
Yes, exactly.
Claims that's something to be ashamed. I'm an atheist. I'm an atheist. I'm an atheist. I'm an atheist. Now let me take a sec. Don't mean to sound so hateful, but I swear to God, pun intended, I find it disgraceful that thousands of children are raped by priests, and since they're holy men of God, they get away scot-free. And the Pope does his very best to keep it on the hush. Don't wanna affect business, he loves money too much. We know that they love the kids, but how the fuck can we protect them while they planning to molest them? We teaching them to respect them.
Fuck that.
The system is broke down, working backwards, and the only action or tactic I plan to practice now is to attack them. The parties of God's hands are bloodstained, millions of murders by believers, and they're all in God's name. And let me take a sec, don't mean to sound so hateful, but I swear to God, pun intended, I find it disgraceful that many atheists are told to be quiet. You're not alone, speak your mind, time to let it be known. I'm proud to be an atheist, a skeptic, a non-believer, an infidel, a heathen. I call it how I see it. I say it's ignorance and you just call it faith, and unsubstantiated claims that's something to be ashamed. I'm an atheist.